In this lesson, we're going to examine how we can use some technology to help us actually build these displays for data. One of the ideas we're going to look at today is the idea of a histogram. A histogram is a special kind of column graph. Right? It's used when we have large amounts of data, usually in intervals. Now, theoretically, we should be using it for continuous data most of the time, but we can use it for discrete data also if there's enough of it. But it means we have to put things into intervals. Okay. As I was saying, it's a special version of a vertical bar graph, okay, but in this case, there is no space between the bars. The bars are always equal width. Okay, they show the intervals, and the height is our frequency. Okay, so for example, we look at a rugby team here. We're going to look at their weights. Well, weight's a continuous variable, so we have bars that go from 50 to 60, 60 to 70, 70 to 80, and so on. Okay, notice there's no space between them because these bars have continuous data between all of them. To make these things, we usually start with our frequency table, like we did yesterday. And then we're going to make our histogram. We're going to learn how to do it by hands. We know where it's coming from once. And then we use technology to help us do this in a faster way. Because really, it's not the graph itself that's helpful. It's what we can analyze from the graph. So if I can make it with technology, I can see it. I can analyze it just as quickly that way. So there's a couple of things you need to keep in mind when we make these intervals. Number one, we're going to use intervals if there's a lot of data or it has a large range. So for example, if I had data 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, I wouldn't really need to make intervals. A histogram would not be a good tool for this because I'd have a bar with 1s in it, a bar with 2s in it, and a bar with 3s in it. That'd be done. I don't really need more than that. But if I have a lot of data, 500 pieces of data, let's say, or the numbers from 1 to 100, well, it makes sense to make intervals. Okay, number two, once we're making our intervals, we want between 5 and 15 of them. Okay? There's no right number, but there is an incorrect kind of number. And we always want between 5 and 15 intervals. There can't be any gaps between your intervals. So if we look at this one, we have 10 to 19, 20 to 29, 40 to 49, and 50 to 59. We're missing the 30s. The fact that you don't have any 30s is an important piece. So don't skip over that interval. Include it. It just might mean there's a frequency of 0, and that's okay. And then the last point, intervals should not overlap. For instance, 20 to 30 and 30 to 40. The problem there is, where does the number 30 fall? Does it go in this interval, or does it go in this interval? Because I have an overlapping number, I don't know that. So we often write inequalities for our intervals. So what does this mean? This means from 20 to 30, including 20, equal to 20, but not 30. So 20.00001, oh, that falls in here. 29.99999, that still falls in here. But as soon as I get to 30 point anything, oh, I'm in the next interval. So I will often use interval notation. You could also, if you use discrete numbers, right, with a dash in between, remembering discrete numbers, the number 29 obviously falls into here, but the number 30 would fall in here. There is no 29.5 when it talks about discrete things, because that's a counting number. Okay, so let's take a look at one of these things. We have 20 students who are interviewed about homework. The results from last week were follows as their time in minutes. So let's make ourselves a frequency table. Our frequency table has to include all of this data. So we need to pick some intervals. And then we're going to figure out the frequency of each of those. Our intervals have to include the lowest piece of data and the highest piece of data. There's no question about those two things. We have to scan through here and look for the lowest piece of data. I think it's 40. Okay, the highest piece of data that I see, I think, is 87. So I need to have intervals that go from the lowest 40 up to at least the highest 87. Now, those don't have to be the ends of my intervals. I just have to be able to include those intervals. So let's pick something. We can pick any interval we want as long as we end up with between 5 and 15 of them. So for instance, I might pick, I don't know, 40 up to 50. And in my head or on my fingers, I'm going to count. Okay, 40 to 50, 50 to 60, 60, 70, 70, 80, 80, 90. Okay, that's 5. That will work. Okay, now in my head I said 40, 50, 50, 60, but I'm thinking about interval notation. So I know the number 50 is going to fall in here because it's equal to 50. 60 to 70, not including 70. 70 falls into this one. Up to 80 and 80 to 90. Okay, there's my intervals. I'm going to go through and place each data, tally them. In this case, I think it's just easier to count. So I'm looking for 40s. I got 1, 2, 40s, 40s, 43, 4. There's 4 40s. In 50s, we'll do the same thing. There's 4 of them. In 60s, there's 5. 70s, there's 5. 80s are 2. And just to check, I'm going to count. It's supposed to have 20 students altogether, 4 and 4 and 5 and 5 and 5. That adds up to 20. I know I have the right thing. So there's my frequency table. My histogram, okay, I can go on the side here. This is always my frequency, how often something happens. And my biggest number is 5, so I can go by ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, my intervals, my lowest interval started at 40, so I'm going to start my graph at 40. You don't have to start at 0. And these bars should all be the same size. So 50, I'm going to measure these. 60, 70, 80, 90. 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. And I'm going to label that. This is my minutes of homework. Or homework in minutes, however you want to call that. Okay, let's graph it. My first bar is 4. Go up, 4. Now, a ruler would be appropriate. You guys can use rulers. I don't really have a ruler that works so fast with this. And 4 and 4. Well, the next bar is 5. And the next bar is 5. And the next bar is 2. Okay, and all the bars are connected together because every single possibility, every number is included in here, up to 50, not including 50, and all the decimals. Notice I've given them nice numbers and made them easy to work with, but this is continuous data. Okay, there's a histogram, not too difficult, something we know how to do. But our objective today isn't necessarily making a histogram, it's learning how to use technology to do this. So we're going to try the next example. Average temperature in degrees Celsius in July was given here. Create an interval table using classes. Use technology, sketch a histogram. So to do this, we'll start with our table. We can do that. We know how. Intervals, frequencies. It says to start with 25 to 29, and then do 30 to 34. The next one will be 35 to 39. The next one is 40 to 44. I know I can stop when I get to the highest piece of data, so let's locate that data. I think that's 46, so not quite big enough yet. 45 to 49. Okay. This part I have to do by hand. I have to write the table out. It says create a table. The calculator won't do that for me. But the rest, it will. In this course, we use the TI-84 calculators. We have them here at school. That's what we're going to be using. The one I have on the screen is the same one that you're going to be using. So we can download an emulator. That's what I have on my screen. That will work on a PC. They don't necessarily always work on Macs. So if that's what you have, it might be better to come to school and use one of them or borrow one of them. But we're going to learn how to use this calculator. It's good to use technology and learn how to use new tools. So to do this, the first thing I have to do when I make a histogram is tell the calculator, here's my data. So we're going to turn it on. And we're going to go to Stat. Stat is up here at the top. Okay, we're looking for this Stat button right there. Okay, we're going to press Stat. And then we're going to go into Edit. So Stat, Edit. By going to Edit, we're saying, here's my data. Let's put it all in. So we're going to put all those numbers in. Now, on the screen, you have L1, L2, L3. That just stands for lists. So you can put your data in whatever list you want. My suggestion is L1, because that's the first one. But you got to put in every number. So 31, enter. 28, oops. If you make a mistake, not a big deal. Just go back over top, type it in. 28, enter. 30, 27, 46. We're going to put them all in, okay? The more we do this, the faster we'll get. If we mess one up, you can go back up the row or down the row to fix it. You can type over top of them or press the word delete. That also works. But you want to get your data in. There's 31 days in July, so if you notice here it says L132, the 32nd one is blank. The 31st one has the data value of 31. Okay, so that's step number one. Put your data in. And go to the instructions here so we can see them. Okay, so we did stat, edit, enter our data into L1. The next thing we're going to do is we want to create the graph. So to do that, we have to go to the second, the blue button, and y equals. It says stat plot. That means statistical plot. If you notice, the first one is turned off right now. We want to turn it on. So to do that, we press enter and then highlight on. We then can make all these different kinds of graphs. We want a bar graph, a histogram. So we gotta go choose this one here. So we can go down and then over, press enter. Below the graph choice, it says, where is your data? Where's your X list? Well, we put our data in L1. So we're good. If we didn't, we could change this by going down to it and using the second button. And if you notice above the numbers, it has L1, L2, L3, and so on. But we're good the way it is. Okay. Now the problem right now is if you try graphing it, and don't do this, but if you were to press graph, you won't get anything. Because this graphing calculator is set up for doing equations of lines right now, not a statistical plot. It's turned on, our data's in, but the window is wrong. So we need to change our window. That's our next stage. To change the window, and you need your interval table for that. That's why we wrote it out first. Okay, we're going to go to the word window, and X-min comes from our table. It's the lowest interval value. So if you look at your equation, or sorry, your table, the lowest interval value that we picked was 25. So we're going to put a 25 in here. Okay. The X max is the highest interval value. Again, if you go to your table, okay, you look at this. Now here's a tricky one. 45 to 49 is our highest interval value, but what that number really means, we don't show it, but if you think about this as continuous data, this really means 45 up to, but not including 50. We just didn't show it that way. We used different notation. So the highest interval value is actually 50. Okay, we next, 55, 0. I messed up the version. I'll go back and change it. I'm going to type it over top. 25 to 50. That's when my table goes. Starts at 25, ends at 50. All right, next one down. XSCL. It stands for your scale. How big is each interval? We went from 25 to 30, 30 to 35 to 40 to 40. So we're going to play fives every time. Okay. So the width of your interval, how big each bar is. Then your Y-min, we always set it at 0 because this is our frequency. You can't have negative frequencies, so the lowest you can have is 0, so leave it there. And then the 10 we leave as 10. You can change that as necessary. If your bars go off the screen, make it bigger. If they're fine the way they are, then you're fine. Now press graph. Hopefully you get this. Notice that I see this bar, there's nothing in this one, this bar, and then these two have gone off the screen. I can change that by going back to my window and saying, oh, I got more than 10 things in those bars. Let's make this bigger. Let's try 20. Graph. Now I can see my bars. Now I've got myself a histogram. Okay, so 3 parts. You got to enter your data, you got to turn on, pick your graph, and then you got to change your window so you can see it. Okay, back to the question. So create an interval table using classes. So we did part of it, but we don't have the frequencies yet. Here's where your technology comes in handy. Okay. If I press the trace button right here, trace, it tells me my interval and it gives me the number of things inside. In other words, the frequency. So I can fill my table in very quickly by allowing the calculator to do the work for me. There's 11 of these. We press the over button. You get 18 in the next one. The over button again. You get 1. And the next one's 0. And the next one's 1. And now we have ourselves a frequency table. All the parts and pieces filled in. Okay. Part B says use technology to create a histogram. Hey, we did that. We don't have to draw it out unless it says sketch it. Oh, it says sketch and label it. So we got to do that. We can do that pretty quick. Move this stuff out of the way here. Histogram. Okay, so we've got frequencies. And we got our intervals. Our intervals are our temperatures. Temp. Okay. We need bars. We need 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the cutoff numbers are the ones that are on the ends. So we start 25. And then the next ones are going by 5s each time. Because remember, the idea is we're going to go up to but not including 30. Then up to but not including 35. And at the end, up to but not including 50. And we want to sketch this. So we need to have a scale on the side. We have to go up to 18. So what do we want to pick here? If we go by 2, that might not fit. 2, 4, 6, 8, 16, 18. Well, we can make them small. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. It's always good to go a little bit past your highest one. 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 0. Okay, let's sketch this. The first one had 11. 11, I can find that one pretty. Oh, gotta fix that. That wasn't very straight. 11. That says 10. One more time. 11. And next bar has 18. We'll go up to 18. Again, try to use your rulers. I'm not, just because it's a little bit trickier with this board. 11, nothing, and then 11. Those are pretty small to see, but you get the idea. Okay, we've sketched and labeled it. Okay. Now we can answer some questions. What percentage of the days was over 35? Well, looking at my table or my graph, I can find over 35 would be these two, or over 35 is these 3 categories. So what percentage is that? It's 3 out of how many things we have altogether? Well, if I add up this entire column, 11 plus 18 plus 1 plus 0 plus 1, I get 31. There's 3 out of 31 days that were over that temperature, which as a percentage comes out to 6.45. Oh, not 3, 2. Sorry, not 3. 6.45%. And what range did most days fall? In other words, the modal class, where most of the days were between 30 and 34. Or if you want to, you could also write this as 30 up to, but not including 35. That's what it means. And how would you describe the distribution? Well, if I put my smooth curve over the graph, it's kind of like that. I'm missing the positive side. It's been stretched. So we say this is positively skewed. Okay. Again, my thing for this is I want us to be able to analyze the math, not necessarily spend a lot of time having to go through a table and graphing it, which is why we want to use our technology. So I can give you one to try. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to use technology to create an interval table and histogram. Okay. Don't have to draw it this time. We just want to be able to take it and use it. So where do we start? Well, we have to start with intervals. I need this, so when I use my graphing calculator, I know what to put in for my window. So to pick our intervals, it didn't tell us where to start this time. We have to go back to what's my lowest, what's my highest. So we're looking at salaries of students. Now that's a discrete number, it comes with dollars and cents, but there's a lot of data, so it's been something we can organize. It looks to me that the lowest number is 10 and the highest is 140. So I need to include both of those things. And I need to have between 5 and 15 intervals. So I could try going by, I don't know, tens if I want to, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30, 40, 40, 50, and so on. But if I do that, that's a whole lot of bars. 14 of them. It would work, but that's a lot. I don't want to write all those out. So how about we go by 20s? So I can go from 10 up to 30, and then 30 up to 50, 50 up to 70, and we're going by 20s here. As long as I'm going to keep going until I get the last piece of data in there, and the last piece of data is 140. So I'm getting close. Now, I'm not saying you had to choose these intervals. It's your choice, right? As long as you have between 5 and 15 and you include the highest and the lowest, you're good. But I like to pick things that have less intervals so I can see if there's any patterns as opposed to a whole lot of intervals. But it is your choice. Okay, that was it by hand. Now we're going to do the calculator stuff. So we're going to start off by clearing our memory. To do that, we're going to press second plus 712. Okay, we're ready to go. We're starting all over again. So I got to start with stat, put my data in, edit. We're going to actually put the data in. So every piece of data has to go in. 45. Sorry, 43 and 34. Okay, so there's 30 pieces of data. I'm going to count them just to make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 30 pieces of data. The 31's blank, so I'm good to go. First thing I need to do is turn it on. So it's off. I turn it on. I go down. I select a histogram. I then have to change my window. My X min is my lowest number, so 10. My X max is my highest number, which is 150 down here. My scale is the difference between any two intervals, which is going up by 20s. We said start your Y min at 0, and you can leave your Y max at 10 for now. And let's see what happens. Hey, it all fits. And if I use trace, I can get my numbers for my interval table. So what do I got? I got 7 followed by 10. Just use your over button. A 5 and another 5 it looks like. Both the same. A 1, a 0, a 2. 1, 0, 2. And that's all I need you to be able to do with the graphing calculator. Right? Make it, analyze it. What can we do with this? Part B asks us to describe the distribution. So if I was thinking about putting a graph on this, okay, we get something like that, right? Most of my data down at the bottom end. So this thing is positively skewed again. Okay, and that's histograms. Our homework today is a handout. It's on the website. Okay? It does require being able to use a graphing calculator. So if you don't have one, you're going to have to come in and work with one at school, okay, morning or lunch. We can sign them out if we need to, but the only way to get better at these is actually practicing with them.